I've been given the runaround by everybody in this damn place, and I want straight answers. So I'm gonna ask you just once, and I really fucking hope you give me an honest answer. Where is the skateboarding hobo?
Do you have an invitation, overdressed fuckboy?
An invitation for... You know what? Forget it. Just forget it. You at least know where the bathroom is?
Life has many doors, fuckboy.
Yeah, and I'm looking for the one that leads to a place where I can take a fucking piss. Huh. Sounds like I got business to attend to. I'll deal with you later.
I don't think I need to tell you what you need to do right now.
Rolf has seen this meatball. It stalks Wilfred in the dead of night.
Really sorry about this, by the way. You already said that. Oh, sorry about that. God, you'd probably kill me a lot faster if you would stop fucking apologizing. Yeah, so...
Who the fuck are you?
You can't read the text?
What text?
Well, that shit's useless then. Name's Wolfram. And you're fucking welcome, by the way.
You blithering idiot! You stopped him from using the Orb of Chaos!
I'm sorry. What?
The Orb of Chaos? You know, the most powerful artifact in this entire...
Yeah, I know what the Orb of Chaos is.
Oh, then you know more than I do.
I also know that it's definitely something you shouldn't be using.
Oh, please. As though you'd know more about the orb than its literal guardian.
Is that right?
Well, look, way things are playing out, I'm gonna have to use it anyway. See, this guy named Superfire wants to kill me, and when he decides to come after me, then...
Superfire? Did you say Superfire?
Yeah?
A little bit taller than me, black skin, orange dreads.
Literally only the first one. He's made of fire. Kind of why they call him that.
Huh. Well, that explains a lot.
Explains a lot of what?
Look, you definitely don't need the Orb of Chaos for that.
Well, I mean, it's not like I'm gonna be able to fight him myself.
Not with that attitude.
Okay, I could get my ass kicked by a sandwich. There's no way I'm gonna win against someone literally made of fire.
Well, I mean, I could train you.
Train me. As in, teach me that laser thing you did?
What, that? Oh, God, no. But I have plenty of combat expertise and have been trained since childhood as a crime fighter. But first I need to know what kind of skills you already have.
So you want me to do it? A commentary.
What?
Damn it, not this shit again. I'll just demonstrate. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Tommy Maverick, which is a fucking name. He suffers from the same problem I do of not being able to pick a damn topic for his channel, and one of those topics he can't choose between is wrestling. Where is everyone going? Anyway, he calls his series on wrestling Slaying Smarks / IWC fans. I sense gimmick infringement. So basically what I do whenever I cover a wrestling channel, and it's yet another person who has a problem with AJ Styles. I've got 2 videos of his because the second one I really only have a couple of things to say, and it's really only going to come up in the final thoughts. So let's just start with this 30-minute monstrosity. Oh, and by the way, this video came out on February 6th. So I'm not going to be using any wrestling spoilers from after February 6th for WWE. Nothing from WWE after February 6th. So if you haven't watched up to that point, you might get spoilers. Otherwise, you're not going to have to worry about spoilers.
What's up, world? This your boy Tommy Mav, and I came to talk to you guys today about a couple things on my Slaying Smarks. First and foremost, I want to talk about why I think Smarks just really don't get it, as I always want to talk about. But more importantly, they think that it is actually Shinsuke Nakamura's choice to give up his title shot at WrestleMania.
Okay, so we have a a few problems right at the gate. Most specifically, the fuck is your presentation? Okay, I've always said you shouldn't make a commentary on presentation alone, and trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg with the problems with this video. But good lord, is this awful! The terrible green screen, the random text all over the place, the lack of focus, which is oftentimes the result of a lack of any form of scripting, mind you, and that fucking hat though. Look, I'm familiar with urban fashion trends and all, but bruh, you're like a decade out of date with that shit. And with the green screen and everything, you're trying to make yourself out to be a proper presenter, and the hat is barely hanging off of your head. You could actually get away with wearing that if you just, actually put it all the way on. Even with the angle you've got it would be fine if you just put it further onto your head. That hat in particular is what makes me not take you seriously. The frame rate is a really big issue too, because I haven't seen a frame rate this bad in a video since Mr. the Fanboy, ironically enough. And at least he wasn't trying to make it out like it wasn't a thing. It's a problem with the keyed in background footage as well, so I'm not sure if it's because you're using a webcam. I'm gonna have to give some advice right away on this one, because it's Tangent City, bitch!
I see a lot of people try to emulate what other presenters try to do on YouTube and fail because they're trying to do it with different resources than what those YouTubers have. For example, with your video, it seems like you're trying to be like What Culture at Wrestle Talk or some other just general news channel with your presentation, with the guy talking in front of a green screen. It does seem more like the other news channels, but with the microphone in front of your face and everything instead of having a lapel or something. But the problem is, you either A, do not have the proper lighting in order to use that green screen, or B, you don't know enough about chroma keying in order to be able to remove excess green around your body. And this is a common mistake. I used to have this same problem. See, here's the thing. I have a green screen. I just don't have space for it. And although I could use this blue wall behind me as a facsimile, considering blue screen is also a thing, kind of chroma key out this color and do it more manually, what I'd prefer to do is do things like this. That way I have a bit of a minimalist and a unique presentation to provide to my audience. Another thing that I do that you don't is you're not live streaming this. This is more of a point for later, but you're not live streaming this. There's no reason that you can't do multiple takes of what you're saying, like I've done with this particular, little tidbit. So before I get back to, not talking about presentation, which will actually take a minute after this, I do have some advice, both to you and to other people who want to emulate other people's presentation. Don't. See, that's just it. If you're emulating what someone else does, if you're trying to copy what somebody else does, you're really doing things wrong. You should be doing what you do. And yeah, it's fine to be like, hey, I like their presentation, I want to do something like that. Okay, then what you need to do is think about what you have available to you, what resources you can use. Because the fact of the matter is, they're not going to be the same as what that other person uses. For instance, one of my major influences is Wrestling with Regret. I don't have the bookshelf behind me, I don't have as much physical merchandise, mostly because I'm a broke-ass motherfucker. So instead, I just settle for a blank background, and I use this for this sort of background gag type of scenario. And although it looks minimalistic, it also provides a bit of a unique presentation to me, while also keeping the inspiration from places that I am inspired by. So yeah, basically, don't just straight up copy other people's stuff, because if you do, you're not going to be able to emulate it properly unless you spend the money to have their resources.
Okay, so now that the main presentation point is out of the way, let me just address the statement he made. It has nothing to do with the storyline, nor does it have anything to do with what he talks about later in the video. Shinsuke Nakamura didn't give up any title shot, at least not as both his video and the writing of this video, and he's not even talking about Nakamura giving it up later, which I'll be able to elaborate on when that comes. Hold it. Can I just real quick take a look at that intro graphic of his? God fucking damn it, I have to. It's like 1 frame per second. Are you fucking serious right now? Beat more generic than my background music. How do you even accomplish that? Movies are part of popular culture, you chucklefuck. I mean, you kinda can separate sports, but come on, dude, really? Why is it Tommy Mav TV and not just Mav TV? That rolls off the tongue much better. Random skipping in the intro music. Everything but the title at the top moves. The only word in your intro graphic that shows up in the name of the video is Smark. Does this video have like 2 different names or something? Full 2-second pause after it ends. We're not doing this again. Ever. Like, at all. Fuck your soul.
So, we start out with a discussion that was happening on Solid Monster's channel, in which he states that he does not believe Nakamura should not defend his WrestleMania title. So I'm gonna let him play out, and then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on what he has to say about that. So here he goes.
Awkward silence. Okay, real talk. I would give this much more of a pass if this were live stream. These things happen. It's fine. But for one, you knew you were going to play that clip, so you should have already had that queued up, especially since you had the 13-second pause for your intro graphic to play while you weren't on camera to have that ready to go. And for two, considering the fact that this isn't a live stream, that would have been really easy to just cut out even if you were recording this live. And if you're going for the whole live presenter thing, then you should probably be queuing the clip up while you're describing what's going on. Now, thus far, everything I've said in this comm has been presentation. I'm aware of that. But I can tell you this right now. This is where the presentation points fucking end. Look at my fucking timestamp. I'm just getting started.
So, in response to the controversy at the Royal Rumble, with AJ Styles, he pinned the illegal man in the handicap match, right, against the Owens and Zayn. This Tuesday, Daniel Bryan announced that Kevin Owens is going to go one-on-one with his best friend, Sami Zayn, and the winner of that match will then challenge AJ Styles at Fastlane for the WWE title. The main event on this show was Owens and Zayn against AJ and Nakamura. There is dissension in the ranks. They're teasing between Owens and Zayn. Zayn actually left in the middle of the match. He bailed twice, 2 different times. He bailed on Owens. He went to the back.
This is why this is the problem that people have with wrestling fans. If you're somebody who is hearing this for the first time, you would swear that he thinks this is real.
I'm sorry, what? No, wait, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're going to explain how someone explaining what's happening in the plot is an indication that they think there's legitimate competition going on. Please, continue what I'm sure is a great explanation.
It's not it's scripted. They're not actually having any problems, dude. But like I said, if you really watch and listen to these guys, a lot of it's like, man, do they believe it's fake? It's like, I don't know. When you listen to some of the things he says, it's like, does he believe it's fake?
Well, that was a whole lot of fucking nothing. Let me explain why. At the very least in this example, it's fucking dumb. So, we all know it's fake. We know that it's a predetermined storyline meant more for entertainment than to actually simulate proper sporting environment. It used to be a simulation of proper sport, but those days have come and gone. The veil's been lifted. We've seen the man behind the curtain. We know it's a work. How the fuck does someone describing the plot indicate otherwise? That's like saying I think that the events of DuckTales actually happened because I'm describing what's happening in the plot of the cartoon. Yeah, I know that in reality those are two-dimensional images placed in sequential order to simulate movement, with an audio track played in synchronization with those two-dimensional images to create the illusion of speech on the part of the images on screen. This does not mean that me describing the events that these moving pictures are meant to simulate indicates that I believe these things are actually fucking happening. I hope I dumb that down enough. I somehow doubt it. People have a habit of misunderstanding me when I talk about wrestling in these videos.
Okay, so I'll go read let you guys read some of the comments on here because they are just amazingly stupid. All right, so let's go read some of the comments underneath this video. First one comes from Jay. Says, please, for the love of all that is good, don't let them make Nakamura do a shot match. It ruins the whole point of the fucking Rumble. No, Jay. It does not ruin the you know what ruins the fucking point of the Rumble? When people who get fucking title shots are not the people that should get the title shots. What ruins the Royal Rumble is not them defending their title afterwards. They generally only defend their title afterwards because they're not garnering enough attention for the Royal Rumble match. So they are making a conscious effort to try to switch that match because they're realizing it's gaining traction.
Okay, so Shinsuke shouldn't be defending his championship shot then, right? Because you're talking about something that hasn't been confirmed to happen, and this guy is saying that it shouldn't. While I will agree that it doesn't outright defeat the purpose of the Royal Rumble match if it's used correctly, but there is another valid point that's going to come up that I'm going to address in a moment.
And you know what's gaining no traction? The fucking match between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura.
In order to generate interest for a match, WWE has to allow the people involved to have some kind of storyline. You'll say that there is no storyline, and there's some truth to that. But where the truth in that statement lies is the fault of WWE's booking, since the show the guy whose podcast you played was talking about was the very show after the Rumble with both of these guys on it. In other words, WWE didn't even make an effort to create a story, which is their fucking job, mind you, if they are going ahead and going this route. Either that, or they're having AJ complete his part of Kevin and Sammy's story while Shinsuke is given a bit of a filler feud to buy time because their story would not take long to tell. This is part of the reason I don't like judging storylines before they finish, but my point still stands. You say there's no interest in the match? First of all, there is from the more dedicated fans, but that's a point I'll get to address later. Second of all, the lack of interest in the match is the fault of management in this case, and not the performers themselves. Because if you listen to how people actually respond, they want this match to happen.
Half of the people the people who want to see it have already seen it, and the people who haven't seen it don't give a shit about it.
Alright, I can debunk both of those statements with one statement of my own. Not everyone that watches NXT watches NJPW. Yeah, you're going to later say some shit about NJPW, so I'll save my points on that for later. But simply put, if you're primarily a fan of WWE's product and are subscribed to the WWE Network and not NJPW World, there's a distinct possibility that you have not seen Styles versus Nakamura. I mean, sure, you've seen both of them face John Cena, and those were good matches, but it's very reasonable that you have not seen these two against each other. In addition, even if you have, that's not to say it'll be the same match just because it has the same guys. Styles proved that in 2015, as in right after his match with Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom 10, that he can face the same opponent, namely guys like Chris Jericho and John Cena, and have wildly different matches each time. Are you really telling me we'd get the exact same match after 3 years of separation, but we wouldn't with only 1 month of separation? Add the difference in the face-heel dynamic with AJ Styles being a face now instead of the Bullet Club heel he was in JPW, and a change in the degree of stage they're on, competing for a primary title rather than a secondary title as they did in JPW, and you've got a formula for a very different match from 3 years ago. Oh, And about that whole storyline thing.
So, once again, let's be real here. It has nothing. That's what really annoys me the most. Now, you want to flaunt. You want to act like the storyline is king when it comes to shit you want, and then you want to throw the storyline to the side when it comes to shit that you don't care about.
Now, this seems to imply that you feel there's no story involved with Styles versus Nakamura. And even if you're not directly saying that here, you're going to later. So let's just get that out of the way. First of all, the Rumble match can easily be the creator of the storyline, not just a catalyst to continue it. Randy Orton's storyline leading up to Royal Rumble 2009 had very little to do with Triple H, and it wasn't until after the event that Orton's issues with the McMahon family became a focal point. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself that this is just one example, and the build-up towards that storyline was already there. And these are both true things. However, the setup for Nakamura and Styles is already there too. They've had stare-downs with each other before the Royal Rumble, and both have pinfall victories over John Cena. Not to mention that things like Owens vs. Zayn feud from 2016 and Balor vs. Styles at TLC prove that WWE is, at least now, willing to use information from before these people were in WWE to help inform feuds that are currently happening. In other words, the fact that the history between Styles and Nakamura occurred while outside of the WWE doesn't mean anything in terms of how it can be used in WWE. So once again, a lack of story is the fault of the booking team, not the wrestlers themselves.
Now, Roman Reigns was the second. It had it basically had the top title in the company. Is obviously doing the most when it comes to ratings and everything else. He's the biggest star on the show. Yet he can't win the Royal Rumble or you're boo.
Oh, wait, were you being serious? Okay, so let me preface this by saying that Roman Reigns gets too much hate. He's really not that bad of a wrestler in all honesty. That being said, oh my god. Okay, if you had mentioned the fact that Roman was selling lots of merch, then you might actually have a good point here. But you're bringing up the thing that WWE clearly doesn't care about as much. Ratings. As you can see from this chart, which does not include 2017 because it's not all that important to this discussion since Roman wasn't in the main event in 2017 much at all, we can see that the biggest dip in Raw's ratings came in 2015. The year that Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble, was a major presence on TV, and more importantly, won the WWE Championship in November. Granted, Seth Rollins was the champion during the majority of the year, I will give you that much. But the fact that this downturn for Raw continued into 2016, where Roman was in the title picture during the entirety of the first half of the year, and still involved with the Intercontinental title afterwards, it seems pretty clear what the constant is from my eyes. And then there's SmackDown, which only reached a major dip from 2014 to 2015 when there was no brand split and Roman Reigns was being pushed. You could blame the authority angle for that one, and probably thank the brand split for increasing interest in SmackDown the next year, but the fact remains, Raw has declined since Roman Reigns entered the spotlight.
Shinsuke Nakamura, who is a throwaway fucking piece on SmackDown, the B show. Shinsuke Nakamura is a throwaway piece on that show, but they have to let him win because if they make anybody else win, you guys will boo them out of the freaking thing in the Northeast.
First of all, Shinsuke Nakamura is a throwaway guy? No, I'll address that B show shit in a moment. Did you just say Nakamura is a throwaway guy? I mean, you are entitled to your own opinion, of course, but I'd have to disagree with you on that front. After all, he was being put in the spot John Cena used to fill to ensure that people stuck around through 205 Live by promising them a Shinsuke Nakamura match after the show ended. His debut at Backlash was highly promoted, and his first world title match was at SummerSlam, one of the big four. I'd certainly say that although WWE could be putting a bit more behind Shinsuke Nakamura, maybe even give him a good mouthpiece, potentially, it's not like they're treating him like he doesn't matter. Now about the B-show thing. Yeah, until basically the beginning of 2018, the only draw bigger than Roman Reigns in terms of merchandise was on that B-show. That B-show was also given the 5th best merchandise salesman in the New Day, and also has the championship with actual history behind it. Work rate show does not mean B show. And although it does have less direct oversight from Vince McMahon, it's got more direct oversight from Triple H, the guy who's going to be running the company in the future. I mean, you can still make the argument that of just calling it a B show if you want, but when it's coming damn close to eclipsing Raw in viewership, and by my calculations, had its most outstanding ratings year yet with a 2.64 average throughout 2017, yeah, I'd say the calling it the B show is either misguided or something that is very soon to change. But there is one more thing you said that I want to address. Nakamura is the only guy we'll let win, huh? Okay. Here's a list of guys that were highly unlikely to be booed for winning other than Shinsuke Nakamura that were in that match. Rusev, Finn Balor, Andrade Cien Almas, Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy, Adam Cole, baby! The Miz, Rey Mysterio, Dolph Ziggler. Now, is it possible that someone could have had a problem with any of those selections? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I don't see the whole crowd turning on any of these guys winning even on the worst day. Hell, most of the other entrants I don't think would be likely, although there may be some head scratching for someone like Apollo Crews, but I feel the only two guys who could have won that would have gotten the reaction you're talking about would have been John Cena and Roman Reigns.
So they have to let these guys win. But when they let these guys win, as I always predict, it goes off to that, and next thing you know, people don't give a shit about it after that. So what do? Now they have to start making all these moves to try to undercut it and get Shinsuke Nakamura off the freaking main event card, because they obviously
I like how you cut yourself off because you don't have an actual reason, especially since Shinsuke Nakamura isn't even confirmed to be putting his WrestleMania shot on the line at all. You're also trying to say that they have a history of having people, the fans, really and truly want to win the Royal Rumble, even though, you know, the past 5 years would like to have a word with you. I mean, we can discuss the actual ways they had to get themselves out of a bad booking decision with the Royal Rumble, like Batista or Roman Reigns, but you'll be shooting that argument in the foot yourself, so I don't think I need to do that. But please, continue.
This is the point, and this is what I said last week. There is no storyline between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Not one that will have either one of them looking better coming out of their title match. So, if you're looking at these two guys, they have to throw in all this extra crap, because they can't just have a program with these two guys, because there's really no program to go about that will garner any interest. So they have to throw in Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but it doesn't garner any interest. Nobody gives a shit about SmackDown anyways. But the people who do care about it are the people who've already seen the match.
I've already debunked all of this, but since you seem so convinced that Sammy and Kevin were thrown in, then let's go ahead and let me get into fantasy booker mode for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to start right after the Royal Rumble with this, so we'll be going from there to Fastlane to WrestleMania. First of all, I like the idea of having a triple threat for the title at Fastlane, but I think we should build this a bit more like Cena versus Michaels at WrestleMania 23, with Nakamura clarifying that he has AJ's back because AJ is the opponent he wants to face at WrestleMania. We can have Nakamura and Styles feud with Owens and Zayn leading up to Fastlane, where Nakamura stops the match from being 2-on-1, allowing AJ to be able to pick up the victory. I'd say the spot that really ends the match is a miscommunication between Owens and Zayn, leading to them potentially feuding, while Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan are going to back and forth between both of them. I'd imagine each of them taking a side in the Owens-Zayn feud, since that's the feud they're actually involved in, leaving Nakamura and Styles to go after each other when no one else is after either of them, speaking of their history. In fact, this could be a place for Nakamura heel turn, fueled by latent fear that AJ Styles is still as underhanded as he was 3 years ago. Doesn't really make sense to turn AJ every single fucking year, after all, and a heel Nakamura would be quite the interesting experiment. It also fully switches the face-heel dynamic from their match in New Japan. See, that's my take on the feud. I came up with that in, maybe like 5 minutes? WWE has an entire staff of writers. They can bring something to the table. I'm just saying.
I mean, didn't they face each other in New Japan Wrestling? Weren't they both there? I don't know. Maybe it didn't. The truth about it is the point that I don't know if it happened before should let you know how much I give a shit about it. That I didn't even take the time to go research whether or not that is actually true.
The fact that I didn't do my research should tell you how important it is. What it tells me is that you're entirely unprofessional and basically just want to bash a thing that you don't like instead of doing what you're trying to look like you're doing. AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura did have a match in New Japan 3 years ago. Yes. Do you want me to go over all the WWE matches that have happened multiple times in the same year, in some cases in the same month? This is no grievance on WWE's part, my dude. Fuck, are you kidding me with this shit? Owens versus Zayn in 2016. Mahal versus Orton in 2017. I could make a fucking list!
Regardless, right? When you listen to some of the stuff these guys say, it will take away from the Royal Rumble. At what point do you think booing the winner takes away from the Royal Rumble, the prestige of it? Do you think booing only wanting certain people to be thrown out at the expense of the people who do like those people?
Wait, I'm sorry. You mean kind of like what you're doing right now?
But anyways, we keep going. Okay, and this is what really gets me, because they all think that they're better bookers than WWE, right? So this Mr. FQ says, okay, how about this? Just one Mania title shot from Jinder. Hear me out first. Jinder talks trash to Nakamura saying, you'll never beat me. I'm a former champ, blah, blah, blah. How about one match to see if you really got it? So when they ring the bell, no lockup whatsoever, Nakamura just hits Jinder with the knee, and when Jinder tries to get up with Kinshasa, and 1, 2, 3, just the ultimate squash and satisfaction seeing he got pushed just because of the statistics and expanding business in India.
Okay, may I for a moment, Tommy? Because that's fucking terrible. Reason for the push aside, the real problem with Jinder Mahal's push was that it was too much too quickly. He went from being a jobber, and I do mean a literal jobber, a guy who does not win, to being a main event threat overnight. And that is one of the most lacking booking decisions in all of 2017. See, if they want to make a star for the Indian market, they should not have tried to shotgun someone to the top to make that happen. Hell, they didn't even need to. They had months to work this guy up to credibility, and they used none of that time wisely. I would argue that they should have put him in the mid-card first to see if people in that market gravitated to it. But if they were insistent on pushing him to the moon in 3 months, they should have taken all 3 of those months instead of putting him right in the main event on night 1. That being said, a squash on the part of Shinsuke Nakamura does absolutely nothing but rebury Jinder, which isn't exactly good for business. At that point, you basically kill a man's entire career solely because of booking's own lack of foresight. And whatever you think of Jinder Mahal, he doesn't deserve the Muhammad Hassan treatment. However, this idea could still work as a way to show Nakamura's on-screen evolution by just giving them a longer match. I'm not saying they need a 20-minute barnstormer. I'm not sure if Jinder has the technical ability to pull that one off. But a nice 11-minute competitive match to display Shinsuke's skills and show that Jinder really can be threatening before bumping him into the US title picture on a more permanent basis would work wonders. Now let's listen to Tommy completely fail to point out the problem with this idea.
Why in the hell would they do that? Some wet dream about them doing a squash match to Jinder Mahal for no reason. Why the hell would they hurt Jinder Mahal? He had nothing to do with the title shot.
Because he beat Shinsuke twice already. As much as you complain about there being no story to Nakamura and Styles, you have a match that actually has an established story within WWE, and you question why it would make sense? The guy even explained why he would squash Jinder, because he shouldn't have been pushed in the first place. Whether that's a good reason or not, he stated that reasoning. This is what happens when you focus on insulting people instead of actually making your case. This is what fucking happens.
Why would you hurt Jinder Mahal? What did he do? Why? What is your hatred with Jinder Mahal that you just need to see him get squashed?
I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes. I saw the sign, I'll do without you, when it was without you.
This is why WWE will never go anywhere. Raw last night was horrible.
Wait. I'm sorry, what? The fuck? Okay, that's a fucking segue and a half. Fans' idea about SmackDown is stupid. Raw sucked. You imply that the fans' idea is the reason WWE isn't going anywhere, and don't explain how what a fan thinks relates to the product itself, and then talk about an entirely different part of the product. My brain hurts.
Boring as crap. Once again, the only part of the show that was even remotely redeemable was whether or not Ronda Rousey was going to show up and the Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Jason Jordan situation.
The women's elimination chamber? Half the show was built around that. They announced the participants, Alexa Bliss and Kurt Angle had an engaging exchange, and that story was built on in a match between Mickie James and Sonya Deville. Admittedly, it was kind of a middling show, but it wasn't nearly the slog you're making it out to be. Well, unless you're sexist, I mean.
They have totally made the cruiserweights useless by firing Enzo Amore. It's a totally useless division now. No stars in it. It went right back to what it was before Enzo got there. Nothing there redeemable about that stupid ass division.
You know, except for match quality. I mean, say what you want. If high work rate contests aren't something you enjoy, then that's fine. But this is something that, ironically enough, a lot of smarks do that you're guilty of doing right fucking now. You are not the only wrestling fan in existence! A show that presents high work rate matches has something redeemable on it. High work rate matches. It's not something that everyone will like. No. Nor do I honestly think that the Cruiserweight division honestly needs to be. But how about instead of bashing things as not redeemable, you talk about the things that you want more of instead? And as for Enzo Amore, yes, clearly WWE wants to continue promoting an alleged rapist. I mean, yeah, I feel like they should rehire him if shit's proven false, but I'm not exactly willing to say that they're making the wrong move here. Promoting rapists tends to be in bad form for a Fortune 500 company, just saying.
The girls, they keep trying to make it like we give a shit about Asuka, which they show week after week. Not even the smarts care about her. They don't cheer. They have no reaction to her winning. They don't care about her. She's only there because once again she's one of she's one of Triple H's guys from NXT. So they're pushing her to the moon, and she has not deserved it at all.
Weren't you just getting onto crowds cheering and booing the wrong person? First of all, way to say this on a week that just plain had a generally dead crowd to begin with. Second of all, crowds tend to be much louder at the bigger events than during weekly television because more important things are going on. That being said, the crowd's reaction to what she does, sorry if it's not blowing the roof off the place every single match, but I hate to say this, but your expectations are way too high. This ain't the Attitude Era.
Other than that, there's nothing on that entire show that was even remotely redeemable. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a crap about that show, and it's because they weed out all these people that were great people that garnered attention. Your Rybacks, your Wade Barretts.
Ryback? Wade Barrett? Yeah, okay. See, here's the thing about the guys you just mentioned getting weeded out even though they garnered attention. There were reasons other than just WWE's mishandling that resulted in them leaving. Ryback had contract disputes with WWE that really had nothing to do with the fans souring on him. And he actually took the role that CM Punk kind of branded him with and used that to get some awesome heel heat that worked well. But Ryback's issue was that he felt like the company wasn't behind him. Ironically enough, a similar degree of non-appreciation that CM Punk, the man that accused him of being unsafe in the ring, would use as his reason for bowing out. And then there's Wade Barrett. Okay, so I get the reason WWE never really got behind him down the line, but the initial burial was a bit premature. The Nexus angle was mishandled to hell and back, thanks to a desire to make John Cena look like the big bad muscle man on the block, culminating in Wade Barrett literally being buried with chairs. He wound up in the long run being prone to injury, which is why he's more of an authority figure position than an active wrestler nowadays, but the fact remains that he definitely deserved more of a shot than he got. So, yeah, you do at least partially have a point. WWE tends to have a bad habit of misusing good talent they have. Derek Bateman also comes to mind, as well as the initial run of Drew McIntyre, not for lack of trying on his part. So I'll give you this one. Except, didn't you say this a minute ago?
She's one of Triple H's guys from NXT.
Yeah. Yes, so are they. So shut up, you mook.
You know what I'm saying? Guys who actually had attention around them. And now you have a bunch of guys like your Finn Balor's and the Bullet Clubs and Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, and all these guys who are getting all these mega pushes and are laughably forgettable.
What? Alright. Let me just sit down and teach you a bit of a lesson on how fucking wrestling works, son. Let me go one by one and debunk how forgettable every single person you brought up is. Finn Balor. Okay, first of all, one of my most popular commentaries has his fucking name in the title, but that doesn't mean anything. My friends that have no interest in wrestling are fans of Finn Balor. Let's just put that aside too. Let's just push all that aside. Let's also push aside the fact that he created the Bullet Club. How about the body paint gimmick? How about the dual persona thing that has even come up once or twice in WWE and isn't something that was only brought up in NXT? How about the fact that his name is derived from Irish mythology, something that has also been used in a number of storylines? How about the fact that he was the first Universal Champion and actually matches the belt's color scheme? AJ Styles. Let's ignore his entire run in TNA that literally made that company what it is. Other than terrible booking, making it. Let's ignore the fact that a mainstream publication, Rolling Stone, as in not a wrestling magazine, named him WWE Wrestler of the Year in 2016. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore the fact that he's been deemed reliable enough to hold primary championships in pretty much every promotion he's ever been in. Let's just go over his moveset. I'll be ignoring ones he doesn't really use in WWE and only go over ones that he is most known for uniquely using in WWE. The Styles Clash. He invented that move. It was such a good finisher that Undertaker's wife would use it in WWE before AJ Styles showed up. Kip Up Frankensteiner. I repeat, Kip Up Frankensteiner. Pele Kick. Phenomenal Blitz. That's the combination strike that he does. It's really fun to watch a strike combo like that. The Rack Bomb. The Ushigoroshi. These are just moves that he uses in WWE that either nobody else does or barely anybody else does. Forgettable my ass. Shinsuke Nakamura. We're just gonna ignore the entrance music that can be manufactured by WWE themselves. Let's see. The way he rocks out to his own entrance music, that's not manufactured by WWE. His weird Skrillex hairstyle, his Michael Jackson inspired ring gear, that's something from NJPW. The one eye closed thing that he does, the thing where he falls on the mat like he's pretending to be dead. Come on! Yeah! Good vibrations. Nakamura is a screaming madman made of knees to the face, and if you call that forgettable, well, you have no soul. Bullet Club. See, the others you might have had a case for to some degree, but I can factually prove the Bullet Club is in no way forgettable because they have done something that literally nobody else has done. They got their merchandise sold in Hot Topic, and they probably outsell almost everyone on the WWE roster. Can't find the outright numbers to confirm this mind, but the fact that they have merchandise in a mainstream outlet in WWE doesn't anymore, is a testament to just how unforgettable to many people Bullet Club really is. So go on. Continue talking about how people who are completely changing the wrestling landscape are laughably forgettable. I'm all ears. Oh, by the way, before I forget, Bullet Club is also hosting their own wrestling show. They're not a promotion. They're a faction.
But we should squash Jinder Mahal for no real reason.
Oh, are we back on the comment now? Incoherence is fun. This is real, by the way. I didn't edit this.
Defending a title opportunity that you've won is one of the laziest, most stupid booking decisions possible. Except when Randy Orton did it last year, and you guys were all for it.
Let me just stop you right there, because that is nowhere close to a unanimous agreement. In fact, this is the first I heard about people not having a problem with him defending the title shot, as a lot of people thought it was an unneeded wrinkle only meant to elongate the story arc that probably could have been told much more succinctly. I'm not saying that there weren't people who were fine with it either. At least they gave a reason for why him defending his title shot became necessary in this case, since at this point there were two number one contenders, due to Randy Orton initially refusing to capitalize on his WrestleMania match, as in initially declining the match, which was kind of stupid to begin with in all honesty. So they were deciding between the two. As a matter of fact, I heard more people complain they didn't make it a triple threat than anything. Again, to make things clear, I'm not saying that the thought process you're describing didn't exist, because I'm sure it did. What I'm saying is that you're trying to use an opinion that the majority did not hold, to my knowledge, as proof of a double standard. And even then, they created an actual story around there being two number one contenders as opposed to just slapping together a match with a title shot on the line. In conclusion, your double standard is based on an opinion that is not provably popular. You shouldn't be treating an entire community as a singular entity in the first place, and it's not even a one-to-one comparison. But I'm sure you have something much more valid to— Of course you fucking don't. I've watched the damn video.
This is why I say you cannot, when you try to cater to a group of people that have absolutely no consistency in their argument, then you're just running in circles. They're going to always change the script so that people that they like can get the push that they want, and the people they don't like can be forgotten.
Okay, the way you describe it, it honestly sounds like the solution to catering to the group you're talking about is simple. Listen to who they like and push who they like. Shame you're saying everybody on the internet has the same fucking opinion, you chuck.
Randy Orton did the same thing last year, and I think John Cena did it a couple years before that.
Alright, let me debunk this one too. For one, it was 5 years ago, but who the fuck am I to complain about you not knowing your shit at this point? See, this was John Cena versus The Rock. The second one. Yeah, people had a much bigger thing to complain about, namely the fact that Once in a Lifetime the previous year was a complete lie, and WWE knew it was a lie from the very beginning. The lesser grievance tends to get ignored when the greater grievance rolls around.
The Royal Rumble, and I think Roman Reigns did it.
In this case, it was a response to the outrage of Daniel Bryan not even being in the match at all. But remember how you said it was a way for WWE to get out of a bad decision on the winner? None of these Rumble winners lost the match where their title shot was on the line. In other words, your whole point for why Nakamura defending his title shot would be necessary? Rendered moot by your own false evidence of hypocrisy.
This is the stupidity you deal with when you're dealing with these people. There's absolutely no consistency whatsoever. They just say any random thing because they're a bunch of stupid marks pretending to be smart marks. But they're actually just a bunch of marks. Crazy fans that will support anything as long as it goes against what they goes against the narrative of who the top pushy big guy is.
And the funny thing is that, you know what? No. I'll just save that one for my final thoughts.
I don't want to see another AJ versus KO match. KO can't hang with AJ. I like AJ Styles. But what the hell does that even mean? What the hell does that mean? How can he not hang with AJ Styles? AJ Styles is the face, dumbass. He's supposed to be better. He's supposed to be more exciting. He's supposed that is the epitome of why I say they have absolutely changed what wrestling used to be to this stupid ass dumb shit that it is now. They're not competing, dumbass. It's fake. They're not actually going against each other. He does not have to hang. He has to push a story along.
The commenter may have been saying that Kevin Owens does not have the technical acumen to have a good match with AJ Styles, which is factually inaccurate if you've seen any of his work anywhere. But I can honestly see where this guy actually does sound like he's getting worked. I mean, again, he might be essentially saying that KO isn't as good of an actor as AJ, for lack of a better way to put it, but can't really tell that from the comment by itself as you read it, so, you know, can't exactly say I don't get it in this situation.
How do you win? How do you win when you have dumbasses like that? They shouldn't fight. They shouldn't put people in the match unless they are both able to do exciting stuff.
And now you're putting words in his mouth. Yeah, can't hang can mean a number of different things. It could mean it in the kayfabe sense, which was where you went first, mind you. Or it could mean flashy moves, which KO actually has in his arsenal. Or it could mean technical ability. It could mean that the guy just doesn't think Kevin Owens is all that over right now. So, what about his statement indicated that he meant flashy and not all of the other things that saying KO can't hang with AJ could mean?
Which is why half of the time casual fans are watching the fucking match not knowing who to cheer for, because unlike you dumbasses, we grew up watching wrestling. You cheered for one person, you booed the other. You didn't cheer for both fucking people.
Oh my god! You did not! Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. Bret Hart's heel in America, face everywhere else shtick. John Cena versus Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker. Triple H versus Undertaker. John Cena versus The Rock. I could go on. Not only does the comment you read not indicate what you're talking about, but what you're talking about isn't even a hard and fast rule, especially not in 2018. Hell, Roman Reigns versus Undertaker actually played with the fact that Roman tends to be viewed as a heel by the smart crowd, letting him act more like a heel in spite of still being considered a babyface. To the kids in the audience, that matchup was face versus face. Oh, there's so much more to this that I could get on. You're from the Attitude Era generation, aren't you? Yeah, remind me how that face-heel dynamic works again?
You are a complete and utter idiot. And you're messing up the sport. Nobody wants to cheer for both people. They want to cheer for one person and boo the other so that they understand what the payoff is and what the storyline leading up to it is. But when you have Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles, there's no fucking storyline. All you have is two people who are going towards a match that nobody gives a shit about because they're both in programs that have nothing to do with the actual match.
You know, I could just keep going down a list of face versus face matches in WWE, but instead, I should probably just give it to you straight. Storytelling is not binary. I'll go ahead and use both a face versus face storyline and a face versus heel storyline as examples of what I mean. 2016. Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles. Theoretically, you should be cheering both guys, but the story being told by the feud was AJ getting the help of his old friends, Gallows and Anderson, in spite of the fact that he was telling them not to interfere, which led to everyone questioning whether or not he was relying on their help. It told the story where Roman wasn't sure if he needed to watch his back or not, and both Roman and AJ had their own backup, in spite of the fact that AJ seemingly wanted it to be one-on-one. The crowd was cheering both guys and didn't really know who they were supposed to cheer, but that's because of the questions the storylines raised. 2008. Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. HBK was actually the face in this feud, with Chris Jericho turning on him, but when you look at the reason Jericho turned, it's much more complex than you're supposed to boo Jericho now. See, Shawn had faked an injury in a match where Jericho was the referee and continued to deceive Jericho with this fake injury, and the fact that the crowd still loved Shawn in spite of his deceptive antics caused Jericho to turn against them. Jericho had a very valid grievance, and one that challenged if you should really be treating him as the man to be hated in their rivalry. Good storytelling can include a villain that you understand and even root for, and then it can include a conflict where you have no idea who the real villain is, or even if there's a villain to begin with. To lock professional wrestling out of these types of stories, well, that's narrow-minded to say the least.
Because you want it. Or because Triple H, like you, believes that putting on a great match supersedes putting on a great show. The show is more important than a dumbass match.
A good match, and I mean an actual good match and not one that just has a bunch of high spots in it, creates a good show because it tells a good story. See, that's part of the craft of the in-ring performance part of pro wrestling, telling a story. Not so much with words, but with actions. Working a body part, for example, and the recipient continuing to sell that body part's injury, perhaps even using that injury as part of the finish of the match. Good matches, Tommy, have good storytelling. And isn't that the exact type of thing you're talking about if you're talking about a good show?
Once again, winning the Rumble is meaningless if you're going to put the title shot on the line at any time before Mania like they're doing with Asuka. Okay, when Roman Reigns did it 2 years ago, what did they say? Well, obviously Roman Reigns sucks, so they're trying to find a way of they know it's going to be a train wreck, so they're trying to find a way to weasel him out of that match. So they're making him fight Daniel Bryan, so Daniel Bryan can be the WrestleMania headliner.
I've already addressed this hypocrisy ploy. Don't make me get the hammer. Hey, more importantly, to both you and the guy who left the comment, Asuka isn't risking anything. Her match with Nia Jax in the Elimination Chamber is to determine if Nia Jax will be in the title match. Asuka doesn't lose her title match if she loses. You gaggle of chuckle fucks.
Then when Roman Reigns won that match, what did they say? Just bullshit. They just want to push Roman Reigns. Even though the crowd was mixed when it was Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan, the guy that they said was so heavily over. If he's so heavily over, why are people booing him because of Roman Reigns?
Did we watch the same match? The only point where Daniel Bryan got even a single boo, or at least it could be picked up on the mic, was the point where he shook Roman's hand. You been drinking the WWE Kool-Aid?
And you guys were perfectly fine when it was him giving up his title shot. But Shinsuke Nakamura, that's just me. It makes the Royal Rumble meaningless. But it didn't make it when Randy Orton and Roman Reigns did it, though.
Okay, let me now take on a new angle to debunk this, namely the fact that if these people felt like Randy Orton and Roman Reigns were the wrong choice, this would be the only out for that wrong choice. See, it's a really simple concept. If Reigns or Orton were disliked as number one contender, then the people who disliked them in that position would want to see someone else take that position. In other words, it's what's called a necessary evil. You also have yet to show that the same people who said that Nakamura putting his shot on the line would be a bad idea say that these situations were anything other than a necessary evil. Just blanket assumptions about the entire internet's opinion that make me want to vomit uncontrollably.
Fucking idiots. Okay, so we go to the next video, which is why they feel Ronda Rousey upsets is unfair to WWE women. So let's hear. Let's see if we don't get a couple dumbass comments, which I know will be here, right? This guy says, female Brock Lesnar contract. She'll win the belt and wrestle 6 times a year, if that. But that makes no fucking sense because you love Brock Lesnar. Remember, or am I imagining the dick-sucking fest every time he comes on to do shit but stand there and make faces while fucking Paul Heyman does a 30-minute spiel?
I told you about that shit! So not only is this, more shoving opinions up people's rectums, like your name should be Tommy Suppository, this isn't even a double standard, because liking it when he does show up is not mutually exclusive at all with disliking how infrequently he shows up. Quite the opposite, in fact, is liking what he does when he is there means they want to see it more often, meaning that the part-time status would be much more of an annoyance for them. In other words, You can't even shove the right opinion down someone's throat to make them wrong.
Bullshit. Okay, so we go to the next one, right?
High quality content, 10 out of 10. What again?
She should have debuted on Raw. Her coming out like that just drained the energy, especially with that tired ass pointing. Everybody that comes out for WrestleMania, what do? What did Shinsuke Nakamura do? What did AJ Styles do? That is the promo, dumbass. They all point at the thing. The only difference about the situation is you guys want to hear her talk because she'll curse and she'll do. She's not gonna be Ronda Rousey from the UFC cursing every 2 seconds because the UFC has a different demographic than WWE does. So they're not gonna spend a whole bunch of money for Ronda Rousey for her to mess up her commercial viability in day one by cursing up a storm.
That does not mean she can't say words, though. Brock Lesnar was a lot more profane in the UFC than he is in WWE pre-taped interviews, and no doubt Ronda Rousey would be the same way. Of course, that's not the only thing to this, either. See, yes, the other people pointed at the WrestleMania sign. Asuka pointed at the WrestleMania sign. This was a celebration of a Royal Rumble victory. AJ Styles was the champion, so he's going, I'm gonna see you there. Same for Shinsuke Nakamura. Ronda Rousey just came out with no match, no challenge for anyone, and had some of the most awkward pointing at the WrestleMania sign ever. For fuck's sake, she did it at the top of the ramp for no reason. Like, okay, do I have to explain this one too? Okay, so I just won the Royal Rumble or like a title match at the Royal Rumble or something like that, and I go pointing at the sign, and I might be like pointing at my opponent or like being like, yeah, I'll see you there, doing something like that, doing something else with my, or I'll be up on the turnbuckle pointing at it, but I'm not typically going to be looking directly at the sign while I'm pointing at it. But then Ronda Rousey, she shows up and just starts going, disco dance up in this bitch! And this is why they would probably never let me in access.
They have to act, they're putting a lot of money into this. They're going to get one chance to do this right. They're not going to make her come out on Raw, which demeans it, so that it looks like another B show antic. Instead, they're going to put it, and they're going to make it seem like a big deal, because they're going to put it at the Royal Rumble, which is one of the biggest events of the year.
Ha! Ha! See, it's funny because... Fuck, no it's not. Funny you should compare this to Brock Lesnar, who was also brought in as a big deal on Raw. But I already know the rebuttal to that. He debuted on the Raw after WrestleMania. That's like the big one. Alright, what about the return of Shane McMahon? That happened the night after Fastlane, which absolutely makes it a, as you put it, B-show antic. If the Raw after the Royal Rumble counts as one, Chris Jericho also debuted on Raw, and he had tons of hype coming into the WWE. There's absolutely nothing wrong with debuting on Raw, especially not the Raw after a pay-per-view, and especially not the Raw after a Big Four pay-per-view. That being said, there's nothing wrong with Ronda Rousey showing up when she did either. The problem comes with the means by which she debuted. Some people would still have problems with her taking the shine away from the Women's Royal Rumble and shit like that, but I think some kind of hint at her in-character motives, other than disco dance in this bitch, would be served better as a better introduction. Unless that's her gimmick. Please don't let that be her gimmick.
I'm sorry, she's not a star anymore. It was cool before she lost. Yet, doesn't make a lot of sense again, dumbass, because Brock Lesnar got his ass kicked 3 times before he came to the WWE. It was the same scenario. Both of them, Brock Lesnar got his ass kicked like 3 straight times.
See, you actually have a point here. Although Brock Lesnar being a big deal in WWE has reasoning, other than the UFC career. So it's not actually the exact same scenario. Yeah, Brock was a WWE guy first. In 2002, he was being billed as a monster then too, as a matter of fact. And back then, he did cut his own promos sometimes. Hell, he even had Paul Heyman as an advocate when he debuted and everything. So no, Brock returning and Rousey debuting are not the same thing. This is going to be more relevant later, but it's worth noting that even though they aren't the same, my skip screen will tell you that I don't agree with what the comment you're responding to is saying. As you point out, Rousey announcing her signing with WWE made headlines, and that indicates her star power much more than a win-loss record does.
Interesting how wrestling fans weren't screaming, "It's a business, it makes sense, dumbasses," over and over when CM Punk went straight to the UFC and got a huge push at a pay-per-view fight right off the bat. It was more like he doesn't deserve that spot. He's taking away a spot from other fighters, entitled whiny bitch gonna get pounded. It's ironic how similar the two scenarios are, yet the reaction is so different. Let me explain that to you, Armbar Arcade, dumbass. What a stupid ass name. Armbar Arcade. Yeah, that makes you sound like a real good wrestler. Because he doesn't point out, he doesn't like hurricanranas or flipping. He armbar. Fucking idiots.
Alright, look, I know you haven't made your point yet, but the fuck? You're resorting to making fun of people's names now? Implying they think they're wrestlers? Are you sure you're a real person?
Okay, so I'm going to explain to you why it's different. CM Punk, UFC is real, dumbass. So therefore, in order to get to that echelon, you have to actually prove it through fighting people. Meaning there's only one way to show if you're a good fighter. That's by being a good fighter. Wrestling is fucking fake. Meaning your star power is what allows you to be catapulted to a higher stratosphere. Ronda Rousey already has star power.
Brock Lesnar got a world title match in UFC after one win and one loss in the promotion, and a single previous fight in K1. Yeah, no, don't even tell me that star power means jack shit in UFC. It may not mean as much as in wrestling, but it does mean something. And if you think that's just wrestling stars muscling in on UFC's turf, Randy Couture. First pro fight was a title match, UFC 13 versus Stephen Graham. That being said, you're about to shoot your entire video in the foot in 5, 4, 3, 2.
The reason why your garbage people go to New Japan Wrestling and TNA is because they're trying to build up their star power so they can inevitably jump ship to WWE like EC3 did and Bobby Roode did. They do that because they want to build up their star power, and then WWE comes and gets them.
So let me get this straight. These people do not get ratings and do not have star power, except of course for the star power that they got to get them into the WWE in the first place. Nice bullet wound, too sweet, bro. But I can actually prove you wrong on this point, and I can use 3 names in order to do that. First, Kenny Omega. And WWE developmental didn't like the way things were going, left to pursue other things. Wound up in New Japan, joined up this group called the Bullet Club, might have heard of them. Made a sub-faction called the Elite with the Young Bucks. Biggest names in the industry right now. Hasn't even so much as fucking thought about going to WWE, and is a central force in NJPW's expansion in the US market. Leader of the Bullet Club at the height of their popularity, as well as in the point that had their merchandise land in Hot Topic. Little known fact, WWE kinda hates this guy because of how over he is outside of their company. Mainstream appeal? Appearances at the Capcom Cup and other major fighting game events. Second, Cody Rhodes. You might know him as Stardust? Well, he got sick of being saddled with that awful gimmick and left, becoming one of the biggest success stories and living proof that WWE is not the be-all end-all of wrestling careers. If you want to talk about mainstream crossover appeal, good friends with Stephen Amell, star of the CW show Arrow, which he is also a co-star on. Third, Chris fucking Jericho. Granted, he hasn't exactly left WWE in full, but he hasn't exactly stayed either. Wrestle Kingdom 12 co-main event against the aforementioned Kenny Omega, and currently working a program with Tetsuya Naito. This may be the closest to what you describe, as all reports indicate that he does plan on returning to WWE, but he's leaving to get star power that WWE cannot give him, as proof that WWE is not the end goal. In other words, people aren't leaving WWE to get the star power they need to come back hotter than ever. In most cases, they're just leaving and making their money elsewhere that will utilize their talents. That's not even anything against WWE, it's just, well, every company really only has so much room at the top of the card.
You guys are the only people who feel that in-ring skill makes you good or bad. Majority of casual fans who are by far the majority of people in the stands, all we care about is star power.
Y'all ain't buying tickets. Yeah, weren't you just at the beginning pointing out how it was the Smarks that were creating such loud reactions against Roman Reigns and using a perceived lack of noise during Asuka's matches as an indication that Smarks in particular didn't care about her? Yeah, you know that the casual fans don't really go to live shows all that often, and that most of those seats are taken up by people who are there to enjoy the in-ring action. And, I could point something out, but, I think that's best saved for the finale, if you will.
Is that person a star? Yes, she is a star. Then they deserve the push. That makes no sense because she hasn't put in her dues. I haven't put it in my dues. I don't give a shit about somebody putting in their dues. If that's the case, then don't put in your dues. See how it works. Don't punish Ultimate Warrior because he can step into the game and take it over, and you have to do this and that and that and the third to get to his level. That's not his fault. That's yours.
Wow, there's a big difference between the two things you're actually talking about. See, while some people would complain about the fact that the Ultimate Warrior became a big name as quickly as he did, even though he was the Dingo Warrior in WCCW first, so he actually did pay his dues, there's a difference between someone getting a push because they have proven they connect with the wrestling fans and getting a push because of popularity from another medium. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who come from other places and become instant stars, like Kurt Angle or Dan Severn. But the thing about those guys is that they prove they've got skills in this field. Brock Lesnar had already done that. He already had a pro wrestling crowd's respect. Ronda? She hasn't had a chance to prove that yet. I'm not even willing to say that she won't be able to either, but like it or not, Tommy, the ability to perform in a pro wrestling match is very important in pro wrestling, because if you don't have that, then you have someone like the Great Khali. Yeah, he's got star power and he looks menacing, but he can barely move, and what that results in is, once people realize how much he sucks to watch, not even the casual fans want to see him in a match. This video is tiring me out, so I'm just gonna skip my way onto the end of the video, and the last thing I want to address before I give my final thoughts.
The last thing I want to talk about was they talk about switching Rusev and Bobby Roode, right? Because they're dumbasses. Okay, let me explain something to you, dumbasses, in closing. Bobby Roode is he has a character, meaning he has an actual gimmick, which bodes well for him being pushed in storyline. What the hell is Rusev Day? Some dumb shit they can say that has absolutely no real meaning and actually pushes his character along zero. Why do I give a shit about Rusev Day? And how can you use that in a storyline?
Yeah! How can you use a catchphrase in a storyline? Is that... Catchphrases aren't usually used to further storylines. They're just phrases to catch the ear, hence the name. Okay, could somebody tell him that, though? Yeah, never mind the fact that he was being given the key to the city he was legitimately born in by the mayor of that city, who declared that day Rusev Day before Orton attacked Rusev during the ceremony in one of the most heelish face moves since Roman Reigns attacking Rusev during his wedding reception. Holy hell, is Rusev just not allowed to be happy? And before you start, Tommy, the character's name is Rusev, you chuckle fuck. Anyway, as a result of this, Rusev and Aiden English would later declare every day to be Rusev Day. See, you'd think this would garner heel heat. You would think. But because the audience sees that Rusev, the character, just repeatedly gets his life ruined for no reason, they were behind this idea. It's basically the same as when Daniel Bryan got a massive fan support after WWE just kept kicking him down over and over again. Also, real talk, how the fuck does being face equate to having a push and being heel equate to not having a push? Answer, it doesn't. Fuck you. Bobby Roode can turn heel and, in fact, have his push elevated because of it. That's typically one of the biggest reasons to turn somebody. Another big reason would be to give new life to a character that's grown stale, and turning Rusev face can do this as well. I mean, I could picture him being this friendly, happy dude that gets a mean streak when you cross him, and his more jovial side could come out more frequently. That being said, back to your question about how Rusev Day can be used in the storyline. Number 1, Aiden English turns on him. Fucking duh, have the guy who sings about Rusev Day refuse to sing about Rusev Day. Writes itself. Number 2, Rusev Mania. Duh. Number 3, an opponent rips up a Rusev Day calendar in front of him to antagonize him. Number 4, Rusev Day celebration is interrupted by a rival. You know, kind of like the thing that started it all, you chuckle! Number 5, various Rusev Day traditions to create annoyance for a heel. Those are off the top of my head!
This is the point. It's the same thing they did with Heath Slater and in the Mizdow and everybody that they can get a little saying into. They destroy the little push they have. Okay, whatever they choose to do with Rusev. I don't know. I don't pay attention to Rusev. I haven't watched SmackDown in forever.
I know exactly where you're going with this, and it means the return of the OG list gimmick, like holy shit. But let's just, I mean, how do you know the only thing about the character is Rusev Day if you haven't been watching? See, this is my problem with some people, right? How are you going to narrow down a character down to a common phrase they use when you haven't seen the character in action? I mean, imagine if someone said this about The Rock or Stone Cold. You'd be pissed, right? Oh, before you try to make a comparison of star power, I can debunk that too. When guys like The Rock and Stone Cold were at their most famous, when they had the most star power, they didn't get that from outside of wrestling. Same goes for John Cena, that he's becoming a much bigger deal in film, and Batista for that matter. But let's focus on The Rock and Stone Cold. The Rock had no star power to begin with, was inexperienced in the ring, and yet was still being pushed to the moon, and the fans turned on him. Tell me, does that remind you of someone in WWE right now? Reigns has it worse for a multitude of reasons that aren't worth going into right now, because they aren't the point. The point is that The Rock had nothing that the fans wanted, and yet he was still pushed. Who WWE pushes is not often based on actual star power, but who they want to see, even when it's at the expense of the fans. Stone Cold is an example of how both WWE mishandles talent that comes from other wrestling promotions, and how wrestling outside WWE actually does create stars as well as WWE can, if not better at times. Steve Austin was stunning Steve Austin in WCW, and actually held the United States Championship at one point, along with being in a tag team with Brian Pillman, you know, the guy who pulled a gun on him in 1996. Yeah, that feud was informed by Austin's history in an outside promotion. Remember when you said the fact that Styles and Nakamura having a match 3 years prior in another promotion was grounds for nobody caring about this match, and there was no storyline because they were both faces? Pillman and Austin had a match in WCW 3 years before this angle, and they were both heels. It took them about a month to build that story up, less time than Styles and Nakamura have to build a story for their WrestleMania match. And no, there was no turn involved on Pillman's part at any point during the storyline either. Oh, but that's just the start of my point, because there's also his time in ECW. It was pretty short-lived, granted, but he still went there and honed the character that would later become Stone Cold Steve Austin. But that's not the character he would enter WWE as. He would come into WWE as the Ringmaster, which was, well, generic and couldn't keep a connection with the crowd. As his change to Stone Cold Steve Austin proved, the reason Ringmaster didn't connect had nothing to do with Austin. It was all management's mishandling of talent that already had star power. Rusev has pretty much always had fan support in one way or another, and it's mostly over because, well, people are sick of the evil foreigner gimmick, and we're not booing Rusev just because he's foreign. People genuinely like the guy, so it makes sense to take the guy that people genuinely like and put him into a position, well, to be generally liked. It's basically the same thing as with Daniel Bryan, but a lot of what I'm saying here ties into the last thing I want to make sure that I cover.
Rusev is in his position. Let him stay in his position. We're going to do a double face turn. Why? It has never worked out. When they did the face turn with Heath Slater, how did that work out for him? When they did it with Mizdow, how did that work out for him? At what point are you guys going to do some fucking trial and error and realize doing this never works? But they don't care, because when he falters and he goes back to being boring and nobody cares about him, they're going to do just what they did with Heath Slater. They're just going to forget about it.
Hey, you know that list I was talking about a couple of minutes ago? I actually already started it. List of pro wrestlers who maintain crowd support after being turned face due to overwhelming crowd support. The Rock. He was turned heel because the fans turned against him, added the cocky attitude and the catchphrases to his bag of tricks. Suddenly people loved him, so WWE eventually had to turn him face again. Stone Cold Steve Austin. WrestleMania 13 double turn with Bret Hart. Stone Cold will go on to be one of the biggest draws in pro wrestling history. Hulk Hogan. Brought in as a heel in 2002 as part of the NWO, massive crowd response resulted in him shedding black and white and going back into the red and yellow for his final run. Even his last appearance after his retirement got a massive pop from the crowd. Daniel Bryan. Crowd started getting behind him after his 18-second loss to Sheamus at WrestleMania. WWE had to turn him face, and I've been describing the crowd support he maintained all the way up until his retirement, even during his time as GM. AJ Styles. Fucking AJ Styles. He literally turned face right after WrestleMania 33, you chuckle. Chris Jericho. I mean, I could give you a list for him all on its own, but I think I'll go with the Kevin Owens Festival of Friendship turn. It didn't turn him immediately, mind you, but the fact that he managed to get a potted plant, a scarf, a jacket, the word "it," and something else I can't think of over, all while being a heel, shows the fan support he had and continues to have to this day, no matter what he's doing. The New Day. They are still the top 5 merch sellers in the company, and they were originally face, then turned into this sort of evangelical heel gimmick that proved way too endearing in its over-the-top bravado to keep heel. CM Punk. Hey, remember how CM Punk was the heel in his feud against John Cena at Money in the Bank 2011? Yeah, remember who actually was getting cheered during that match? Remember how Punk entered into a feud with a heel Triple H after returning? Remember how he left because he felt the company was clinging to its past instead of building their future, and not because he stopped being over? And if you don't believe me, remember how someone who's never had a professional fight made a UFC a bigger pay-per-view buy rate than all but 4 of their events during the same calendar year? Star Power sells fights in UFC too. John Cena. Yeah, we wound up not liking him later, but that's because he became a top guy keeping other people down, seeming unwilling to take a clean loss. Brock Lesnar. Much more solid example than John Cena, as the reason for not liking him was him leaving. Mickey James. Yep, it's not just the guys. Eddie Guerrero literally cheats and we loved him the whole time. Ric Flair, you could probably give him a pass for being a legend, but at the same time. Shawn Michaels, at least twice. I could go on! But I think I've made my points. Your specific examples, Damian Sandow and Heath Slater, were pushed into the background because the booking team not getting behind them or understanding what made them great in the first place to capitalize. In Sandow's case, it was that they literally stopped booking him out of nowhere, and in Slater's case, he and Rhino were pushed in the background of an overstuffed tag team division on SmackDown that honestly could have been handled better in general. There's always a reason that people gravitate away other than they just did. And now for the stuff I was holding on to for my final thoughts. So, the whole thing about you saying that people are just crazy fans who will say anything to go against who the top guy is, that kind of sounds like what you're doing with AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. WWE is behind Nakamura enough that they kept teasing Styles Nakamura in 2017, and they are behind Nakamura enough that they had him win the Royal Rumble over not just guys the fans were likely to boo, but other guys the fans were likely to cheer, like Finn Balor. The whole thing you said about how they want to push their guys at the expense of someone other people like, you're doing the same thing. I mean, yeah, people do like Roman Reigns, that much is true, but not all people like Roman, just like not all people like Shinsuke Nakamura. Not all of what people dislike about Roman Reigns is even his fault, and it's kind of unfortunate, but his mid-card work shows that WWE actually can get crowds behind him again if they put in the work. But they aren't, so the people who analyze the product are going to call them out for it. Is everything that every fan says going to be a good idea or well thought out? Well, no, but at the same time, it's better to respond to that with something that is well thought out than the way you responded. Which is probably my first piece of advice you're going to ignore, but I'm not finished with you yet! So, remember what I said about the fact that casual fans don't typically buy tickets? I mean, it's not true in a black and white sense, of course. Casual fans will buy tickets to an event casually. Casual fans will buy merch casually. The top selling merch guys, Roman Reigns and John Cena, typically sell a little merch to a widespread amount of casual fans. They do sell some merch to hardcore fans, But most of the people who buy John Cena and Roman Reigns merch are moms and kids, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. That is not the majority of WWE's money, though. WWE can't get those casual eyeballs onto the product to buy John Cena and the Roman Reigns merchandise if they don't sell out arenas, and that's where the hardcore fans become the lifeblood of WWE. These are the people who truly love wrestling, and having the big show in town is a big deal for them. Some of them may even travel to see more of the shows, but most of the seats are taken up by your smarks. Hell, even the casual fans you want to talk about are smarks because they're there to see the show, not because they think it's real. Hardcore fans do more than just buy tickets to live events, though. They buy the merch, as my Bullet Club example proved earlier. Large amounts of merch being sold counts for a lot, and hardcore fans will spend the money on the merch they want if they have it, which is why so many YouTubers have a tendency to turn to merch themselves, like me. It's the best way to both tell the person you support what they do and also express your interest to the outside world. But there's one place that the hardcore fans give WWE money and the casual fans just do not tend to do. The WWE Network. That subscription fee has a tendency to come from the hardcore fans' wallet more so than anyone else's, which you can tell by what programs are the most viewed. The ones that lift the veil of kayfabe, the work rate based tournaments, NXT, all this behind the scenes stuff. This is the stuff the hardcore fans want to see, and it's the lifeblood of the WWE Network, and thus the lifeblood of WWE as a whole. Hardcore fans take to social media to talk about what's going on. That's more eyes on the product, more merch sales, more people coming engaged, and potentially becoming network subscribers themselves. Should WWE be doing things to cater to casual fans? Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar is still a match that's pretty much going to happen and probably be promoted as the main event. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be catering to hardcore fans as well, which is why AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura should also be a major part of that card. It's a match that hardcore fans want to see, even if this is a repeat of something they saw 3 years prior. My last piece of advice goes to you, the people you're responding to, and pretty much anybody who's, well, a fan of anything. Do not shove your opinion down other people's throats. It's fine if you have a way that you feel would work better than what's going on, but you're not always going to be right. You should not say that something is bad just because you would have done it differently. By all means, point out what could have been improved from your perspective, but do not act like any dissenting opinion is wrong just because it's a different opinion. If you have a reason for your criticism, share it. And I see points where you, Tommy, try to explain why you feel the way you feel, but it's based on a lot of misinformation. For example,
the biggest stars on there are the big guys now. Your Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, John Cena, Jason Jordan's, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. The smaller guys are okay, but they're not, you know what I'm saying, they're mid-carders. But you want a star power? Brock Lesnar versus, I mean, I don't care about freaking Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles, but I would care about Roman Reigns versus EC3. I would care about EC3 versus Brock Lesnar or Jinder Mahal or Randy Orton or Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns or Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins.
Y'all forgot about the second video, didn't you? Don't worry, this is like the only thing from it. First of all, this directly contradicts what you said a day earlier about how the only thing that casual wrestling fans care about is star power, since big does not equal star. I mean, after all, Conor McGregor gets the biggest pay-per-view buy rates for UFC, and he's 155 pounds. Lighter than AJ Styles. But let's get back to your list of guys. I like how you specifically cite AJ Styles as someone you don't care about, indicating exactly what size you mean when you talk about a small guy, because that tells me that you have no clue what you're talking about, since you list Seth Rollins as a big guy that you care about. Someone who's lighter than AJ Styles, and that sticks if we assume WWE is lying about the build, height, and weight, because Seth is billed at 217 and AJ is billed at 218. I could go on, but not only did I prove you wrong about whether big men are what people draw to with Conor McGregor, I've already proven that you're not even talking about big men in the first place. So, like I said, you try to explain your reasoning, but it's based on things that can be proven false very easily, which, well, it's kind of why I'm here, covering your video in the first place. So I don't think I need to tell you that my advice includes not doing that.
That's it?
I mean, basically, sometimes I have some kind of wacky antics, but...
So, you know how to pretend to fight, but not actually fight.
What?
Okay, you know what? This is getting us nowhere. Just, you know what? Just come with me.
Yeah, alright. I'm mad.